Back into the transcript.
Yes, and the train.
Right. Okay.
We just need Scarlett Johansson to dictate.
She has set the cease and desist.
Yes. Right. Yes.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Andrea.
Hey, Andrew.
Did you want to talk about any of the problems around controlling speakers and signing up for speakers that have been issued after the incident, or do you want to?
I've been gone. Sorry, I've been gone for like.
This was like probably a couple months ago, where someone like bombed it and started throwing obscene stuff up.
Not hear about it.
Okay. You were supposed to have received guidance.
There was a update session or mission folks on. So.
Yeah, I was at that. They talked about it, but
Okay.
We can chat after.
Okay.
How are you doing? Let's see. Jackie, Jim. I think we're at quorum. We're beyond quorum. All right. It's 7:30.
Yeah.
Been recording the whole time. Great. 7:30. Let's kick off the meeting. We've got quorum. Welcome to the May Information Technology Advisory Commission meeting. Pull up my agenda here. Frank's got it pulled up. First, we'll start off with public comment. Do you have any public comment? Doesn't seem like we have any members of the public either online or joining us. Right, we'll move to adoption of the minutes, which I put in the agenda this time. And if you give me one moment, I will get the minutes up on the screen for us all to look at. That Mr. Cornfield sent this morning.
I went to the AI Expo a few weeks ago and the convention center, and Dr. Lee's talk really sunk in. I was hearing
Yeah.
some of the lectures on it. So I'm actually looking to contact him and see any ideas and application use cases to be used, like an AI sphere, like expected outputs. So of like program execution, and that can be used for the intelligence community. So
Excellent. Yeah. I will briefly scan through since we weren't able to get these out to folks.
I distributed separately my full report. I don't know if we want to append that.
Yeah, let's get that appended in and
That's what I
send it out.
I didn't think
Oh,
I
okay.
needed to summarize this.
Right, yeah, you could just, that's an easy one, easy part of the minute.
We'll get that out, up modded and out in email to everybody. So we'll get that on the next one. All right.
Question.
Yeah.
I know you went by quickly. Is there any comment in there about the tasking that Andrea and I have on broadband? If there isn't, I don't have any questions, but if there is, I just wanted to see what it says we're up to.
I will send it out, Jackie, so we can all take a closer look at it. I was hoping to clear it off the books tonight, but we can't quite get to done.
No, I'm saying the minutes. As long as there's no mention in the minutes of that, then
There's not.
There's not.
okay, then I don't have an issue. Thank you.
Right. So first off, for the record, Jackie, can we have you say where you are attending from, with the medical exemption from the chair?
Yes, I am attending from home despite the rock in the background. And I have a medical reason for not attending tonight.
Approved by the chair.
Hey,
Where-
this
Yeah,
is
just
Andrea. I'm attending from home. I also have a medical reason as well.
approved by the chair. Mr. Smith,
I am at my cabin in Maine, and I'm attending by Zoom. I do not have a medical exemption.
all right, you're using one of your 3 personal virtual participations.
I guess so.
We've got that for the record, which is important because the first chair update is that the legislature passed updated open meeting requirements. These were briefed out in a session that the board chair Garvey held and the clerk held for commission chairs earlier this month. There was a number of questions we had regarding the guidance that was presented to us. And they're going to get updated answers to those questions and updated guidance to our liaisons. The bottom line is that the new policy goes into effect July 1st. A couple of key changes are that we'll have to adopt a virtual meeting policy at least annually. So the policy that we adopted last time we'll probably just re-adopt, although the county attorneys will provide updated templates if necessary. They clarified some definitions about who qualifies as a caregiver in the original law, and that there were some other minor things that seemed like new adjustments to me because we had not been aware of them. But we'll get updated guidance from that before, hopefully at our next meeting, so we can implement any new policy changes by July. One of the things I did notice for Jackie was you have to be on camera while you're participating in the meeting. There were some conversations around like, what does that mean? If you go off camera, do you have to be on camera the entire time? Can you listen while you're off camera? And can the meeting continue? And the sense was kind of like, it's like if you left the room or if you lose connectivity, if you go off camera, if you're not in the room, the meeting can continue, but you can't vote. There's no official actions can happen that you can participate in while you're out of the room, just like you would be off camera. So there's some clarification and nuances.
Yeah, I may want to clarify. I mean, I'm perfectly willing to disclose to you or anyone why I occasionally can't be on camera and to see whether that's approved. I mean, basically, I can't be on camera because I'm on a blood thinner and I am having bleeding problems. So you don't want me to be having a nosebleed on the line.
Yeah, no, agreed. So I think you can probably go on and off. We're going to get clarification on some of these more nuanced things, but you can't like participate in official actions like voting on a resolution or something like that if you're off camera. I think I'll
come back on camera to vote and just turn it off, so I have to be less vigilant.
So I think there will be workarounds and adjustments that we can make to deal with all that. But like I said, we should be getting guidance through our liaisons before next meeting on some of the detailed stuff. And then with the agenda last night, they're also drafted an update to the commissioner handbook and they're seeking feedback. There was some feedback provided by the chairs in real time. I didn't have any particular feedback, but I circulated it out. If folks want to take a look at it, that's right, Andrea. Folks want to take a look at it, see if there's any feedback. I'd appreciate if we could have one person consolidate the comments. Do we have a volunteer to consolidate comments? Anyone who's particularly passionate about the commissioner handbook update?
Yeah.
Good man. Thank you, Jared.
Did you get a volunteer?
We did. We did.
Okay.
Mr. Stancomb is going to take consolidate comments. So if you read through them and have them, please send them to him. The comments are due back to the county by June 11th. So if you could get them to him by close of bedtime on Friday, June 7th, that'll give him the weekend to pull them together. And I will get you the particulars about how to submit them.
Okay, and I'll email everyone.
Yeah.
Just so you can have an email address.
And could you repeat who it is that's doing that?
Jared Stancomb,
Okay, thank you.
low man on totem pole, newest commissioner, signing up for the grunt work.
Thank you, Jared.
Thank you, yes.
No problem.
All right, that takes care of the chair update. Next on the agenda, well, before we move on, any other questions on any of those things? All right. Next on the agenda, our guest speaker, Ryan Lervik, who's the CEO of Nuvik, which is a cybersecurity firm here in Arlington, Virginia. We thought we'd have a local Arlingtonian business owner, cybersecurity expert come for our annual discussion on the cybersecurity landscape. So welcome and thanks for coming. Take it away.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to see everybody. Quickly, I have something to demonstrate what we're going to talk about today. What's the best way to
If
get
you
that here?
look, I think I sent you the Teams meeting.
I can jump on the Teams
If you
meeting.
jump on the Teams meeting, you can share.
Great. Just let me pop in a second. All right, great. So the reason this is relevant is I just want to demonstrate something in a second. So give me 1 second and I will share everything. Is it possible to share in Teams? Great. Coming right up. Right. You see this?
Yep.
Okay. This is not the relevant part. It's just a placeholder for later. So thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. First time caller, long time listener, watcher, I guess. So the question came up in terms of emerging technology and what does this mean for cyber security and cyber risk, right? So we wanted to talk about a couple things today briefly about some emerging technologies and sort of how we look at them. Sound fair?
Yep.
Great. So the real question that was posed is sort of like, how do we look at emerging technologies, right? Do we look at it as an opportunity for things that we want to accomplish, right? As a community and as a governing body, or do we look at it from like what the attacker wants to do? It turns out it's both, right? So what we're going to talk about today is literally the attacker's view of two emerging technologies that have been coming out. But I think what's important right off the bat to think about is how the attacker typically views the problem, right? It's not necessarily using emerging technology to do brand new things. Usually using technology to do what they're already doing, right? So like say fraud, for example, right? Something we'll focus on today. So if we think about it in that context, right, then we look at it in terms of, all right, so what are we actually worried about? So usually it's a new way of posing an old attack, right? So it kind of narrows the scope a little bit. If we look at it that way, then from the defensive standpoint, the question is always, all right, so what do we do about it, right? It allows us to sort of double down on what we're already doing and already focused on, right? Constituent data, transactions, things along those lines. The reasonable to protect, right? So what we'll do today, just as a demonstration is sort of look at two technologies that are being used, say, for fraud, right? So maybe the best place to start is we'll break down fraud quickly. And in order for an attacker to achieve fraud, there's basically two pieces, right? One is identity, right? They have to be somebody, pretend to be somebody they are, even if they're not, and get access to information, right? Simple construct. All right, so let's start with identity. All right, so it's likely everybody here, and I think, Jared, you mentioned this earlier, has seen sort of a deep fake, heard of the concept of deep fake, right? Okay, great. Yeah, great. Has anybody ever had experience directly with a deep fake? Okay, we'll change that in a second. So typically when we think of deep fakes, right, we think of like the 2018 video that went around, right, Obama and others, and then all of a sudden it's gotten a lot better in the last 6 years, right? But we think of video and we think of audio, right? But when it comes to fraud, especially for like Arlington, you really only need the audio part, right? And audio is what? It's just a representation of an individual, right? That sounds like the individual. It's plausible, right? So let's quickly demonstrate what that might look like. So hang on. I've not presented on Teams before, so let me make sure this actually works. Yeah. You hear this? All right, so it's playing in the background, but I don't know if Teams can pick it up.
When you share, you need to share
Audio.
the computer audio at the same time. So you probably hear it there.
You know what I can do? Go. Watch this. Hang on, give her the echo and maybe. Where's the microphone? The panel. Great. I'll turn this up loud another.
So we'll need to take a few seconds. Hello. Hello, thank you for calling. Ready.
Yeah, I'll need a direct audio feedback.
When you click the share. So. Just below that, below that toggle.
This.
Try this again. Here we go.
Share.
We wouldn't think with this hard, would you? Hang on a second. All right, one more time. All right, ready?
Hello, thank you for calling Credit Union. This call may be recorded. My name is Margaret. How can I help you?
Hi, my name is and I'm calling to cancel my account.
I'm sorry to hear that. I see you aren't calling from a number on record, so we'll need to take a few steps to confirm your identity. Could we start with your account number?
I'm traveling right now, so I don't have my statements, and I can't log into the app because I don't have my phone with me. Is there anything else we can do to pull up my account?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I guess we won't be able to confirm a code sent to you either. We'll need to confirm your identity before we can take action on your account. Can you confirm your address and billing zip code for me?
I just moved, but my old address and my billing zip code is 2.
Thank you. And could you tell me the last 4 digits of your social security number?
Sure.
Thank you. While I look up your account, could you tell me a bit about why you want to cancel your account?
I'm moving, and I won't have access to the credit union.
Thank you for that information. Just to let you know, we waive ATM fees outside of the state, so you could still use your account wherever you're moving.
Thanks, but I'm not really interested.
I understand. One last question for you. Could you tell me a couple of recent transactions on your credit card ending in
I'm not sure. I think I used it to pay for a couple of Amazon orders, and I know I've used it at the Green Valley grocery store.
Perfect? Thank you. I see that the owner of the account is Mix. Am I speaking to Mix?
Yes, that's me.
We're sorry to see you go. I understand that you want to have a cashier's check with the full amount mailed to you. We'll send that to the address on file.
Actually, like I said, I just moved. Can you send that to my new address instead?
All right, we can do that. Because the address is not on record, we'll need to send that signature on delivery. Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine.
Great. And what's the address you'd like it sent to? Great. Please know that if you change your mind, you can reopen your account and keep your current status level within 30 days. Is there anything else I can help you with?
No, that's all. Thank you for all of your help. I've enjoyed being a member, and if I ever move back, I'm sure I'll make a new account.
I'm glad to hear that, and thank you for banking with us for the past years. If there's anything else you need, please call back within the next 30 days. Have a great one.
Thanks. I hope you do too.
What did we see here? This is a successful banking transaction, right? Customer to bank transaction, right? That normally would be human to human, right? This was actually, so the voice, the customer was an AI generated audio. And it passed identity authentication. So much so that the check now is being mailed to another address that is not on file, that could be part of a broader scheme. Right, so something we see all the time in broad schemes, but this is one example, but that is a successful one just done a week ago. That was fresh. Yeah. What was even more interesting here is the credit union was also using AI generated voice. So what you would think would be human to human is now machine to machine. And it not only passed their authentication, but the individual behind it running the voice. Now, the reason they were doing that was to match the culture of the customer calling. So they'll do this as kind of becoming common practice at off hours for phone calls. But this is, and it passed. That's it. So how hard was this to do? We won't get into it here because this is being recorded, right? But it's relatively, it took an individual, a Nuvik researcher who had zero background in any AI generation whatsoever, curious about it. It took 8 hours and $11. That's it. The content that was used to train the voice, right, was 1 hour of YouTube videos of the customer. That's it, right? To train the voice, to get the inflection, the tone, right, to pass. The hardest part of this was getting authorization from the customer to run this. That was the hardest part, right? And that's something the attacker's not going to do. So just because this is recorded, yeah, no fraud was performed using these examples. We had authorization. Just make that clear. But that's literally how it works. So now you've seen one. Why is this relevant, right? We think about how we authenticate individuals, right? It's something you know, something you are, something you have, whatever the factors that are going into how we're authenticating. The voice is one of them, and this doesn't take much, to do. So let's pivot to the other side of fraud, right? The other side is access. So this is identity, prove who you are, even when you are not. The next is how do you get access to data, right? In this example, they got access to the account, they closed the account, they got access to the cash as it's being shipped to wherever. In other cases, more broadly, especially for the county, right, is we think our data is protected because we encrypt it, right? Well, here's where we might be slightly wrong. Who here is familiar with the concept of quantum computing? Great, yeah. Has anybody played on a quantum computer yet? Yeah, it doesn't exist yet. Yeah, I'm waiting for that day. It's not out yet. I mean, the new theories are like somewhere around 8 to 10 years, right? The next decade, we should see something, right? There's people all over working on it. But what does exist today, literally, are quantum algorithms, right? To break encryption. So especially RSA 1024, for those that are familiar with that. The challenge is, and we'll get into this. So the challenge is using, classical cryptography, which is what we use today, right? So classical computing, running algorithms on that, throwing as much as we possibly can throw at it. The expected time to crack, we're going to stick with RSA 1024 for now, is about a couple hundred years, right? Hundreds of years, right? Largely because the math is, well, it's pretty straightforward. It's linear algebra, but like there's a co-prime you have to guess, which is the secret part. That takes a long time to try to guess given today's algorithms, right? So the expected time is somewhere around 100 years, or hundreds of years actually, more depending on the computing power and the other resources you throw around it. When quantum computing is actually available, right, to run the algorithms that exist today, that time goes to the date that quantum computing is available, plus about 14 days. Right? This is what's called quantum supremacy, right? So that's the term that some have heard, quantum supremacy. That means, right, the time that a quantum computer is available to run algorithms that can break various levels of encryption, right? For those that aren't familiar with it, what happens is, the quantum is running at a completely different, let's just say speed, right? And can crack the information that classical cryptography assumes is hard to do. It accelerates that time to guess the information, right? And then put through. So that's what happens. So on its surface, it seems like, oh gosh, right? This is a big problem once quantum computing comes available. Well, I would posit this. There's actually two problems, more, but two that I want to highlight now is one is, yes, that is an issue when it does come available, right? But it's actually a problem today. Because one possibility is to capture the data that may be valuable, that's encrypted, let's say using RSA 1024, and store it until quantum computing is available, and you have 14 days to crack it and see what's in. So that means it's a problem now, even though it's emerging technology. So these are two examples, right? The identity plus the access to commit fraud that are available, that are emerging, for being used by attackers now to do the same thing that they're doing. Okay. So what does this mean for us right? On the defensive side? Well, it means the good news is they're effectively, with these two, we're using the same two new technologies to pose similar threats, right? Towards the same thing that the attackers are always after, right? Something of value. So if we flip that a little bit and think about what we have, right, from an IT perspective, what's running on our networks, it's stored in our networks, it's stored in our machines. What data we have, where it's stored, and how we're keeping it. We think about new ways to protect that, then we're not chasing the technology versus thinking more about what's valuable to protect and protecting that, right? So with that, I want to run through that quickly, but that's two emerging technologies that will pose a problem today and in the future.
That's great.
Yep.
Round robin for questions, Mr. Larabek. Online?
What kind of data are you talking about? For example, maybe some examples of data that could be stored now correctly.
Perfect. Thanks. Probably the best way to think about what's valuable in terms of data is the length of time it needs to be protected. So when we think about, say, constituent data, it's social security number, PII effectively that we need to protect. In the healthcare world, it's HIPAA, HIPAA protected data, right? So healthcare data. Typically, those sets of data need to live past the lifetime of the individual. So let's just say, for example, there are different people who use different numbers, so let's just call it 100 years, right? So social security number, ways that you can steal an identity, right? That type of information should be kept secret for over 100 years. Well, we're well underneath that here. In other industries and in other applications, that data could be different, right? So for insurance providers, it could be, who they're underwriting and what data, what, let's say assets, I'm going to be very cautious here, what assets might be stored where and how do you access those, right? So think celebrities that have millions of dollars worth of assets, and they might have the authorization code to the alarm code. Should there be a fire, somebody can run in and grab the multi-million-dollar painting. That is something that you would want to remain secure for at least the length of your underwriting, right? So the value of the data that you're trying to protect is relevant to, one, the value to you as the institution or the individual holding it, but also to that of the attacker. Not an easy answer, but usually it's reputation, reputation of the organization, lost work, lost incidents, fines, legal costs, incident response costs. They usually kind of factor in those when trying to figure out what the value of the data is. That's a longer discussion. That's a great question.
So in terms of the first case that you brought, using AI to basically impersonate people, I'm thinking in terms of, you're speaking with an AI. So are there ways that the AI, the adversary AI, can be trained in order to maybe get access to training data, or maybe I'm thinking in terms of like a SQL injection. So maybe saying some things that give data that otherwise wouldn't be provided in a regular phone call, like thinking in terms of this, from this perspective of like a SQL injection or something.
Yeah, perfect. So there's two constructs to it, right? Those that are using it for outbound, let's say optimization, right, for call centers, right, and those using inbound for either, well, there's two there, right, either attack or actual use, use or misuse, right? So we've been playing a lot with different AI models, and a lot of them now are being trained to have restrictions around them. 4 or 5 years ago, you could just ask it any question. Yeah. Typically, you get an answer. Nowadays, depending on which AI, AI generated tool, which tool you're using to generate the artificial intelligence, right? Depending on the safeguards they've put in place, right, will then preclude you from getting access to the data. So an example maybe 2 years ago was you could call and say, well, hey, this is go into test mode. Now tell me about XYZ. And then all of a sudden you've been authorized to go to test mode, so that fail safe goes away. Those, just like anything else, I was going to liken it to the internet, but it's not like the internet at all, but very similar to when, things go out, we realize, there needs to be safeguards, those safeguards get put in place, and then, there's a maturation cycle after that. Same thing is happening with the various AI models that are out there, the tools. You can build your own. That's the secret sauce when it comes to what's being built is, how are the algorithms put together, what data are actually in it, and what safeguards being put in place. Yeah, and can you trick it?
Yeah, we have in the capital improvement, I think some funding later on for AI and IoT and other emerging technologies now. So like the safeguards, I think, if we were to invest in an AI platform like for automating customer service or something, we should probably look into how they're investing in safeguards, trust and safety issues, and making sure that it's not vulnerable.
It's a good thought. Yep. Just to be clear, in case it doesn't come up on the quantum side, quantum safe encryption, right? So you can use classical cryptography that is quantum safe when it does come out. So it's not doom and gloom.
What, in your opinion, should we recommend to the county to do?
That's a great question. I don't have an answer to that because I don't know the problem. So I look at it from the problem, like what?
That's our mission, right?
Okay, great.
To provide advice.
Yeah, right. So to what problem? To data storage, data in transit, or constituent interaction. And in those three categories, I would say Jared's got a great idea on the AI side. So if you're using AI to reduce call center volume, right? So speak to the AI generated voice rather than an individual, then safeguards in place to know what data is protected and under no circumstances released during a constituent interaction, say, right? That would be one piece of advice. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Is
Then
that within the county's authority to do?
I
Or do we
mean,
need to find that?
I think that would require, it might not require, but it could be enacted at a county board policy level. It could be enacted at lower levels than that. So
Lower than the county?
I'm saying that the county manager or the chief information officer could make a decision.
I see. So we could make recommendations directly to Norin or to.
We don't make we make recommendations to the board, but my point is like, there's a number of different ways that decision could be implemented, theoretically. We're still in the conversation phase, not the decision, yeah. Jackie?
Yes, my question is, have any of these new safeguards been updated in things like the NIST framework for data protection?
Yeah, great question. So the NIST cybersecurity framework, CSF, just came out with 2.0 ago, was finally released it. They have, in the protection side, there are data encryption standards. But largely, which do exist, they have data at rest, data in transit, data in storage, and DE, the detection side, to try to detect anomalies, but the protection side. So yes, those are there. Does this one consider the new emerging technologies? I don't know, but I think when we look at this CSF, there are the recommended safeguards or controls, if you will, for each one of the subcategories do address the items that should be considered when thinking about what to protect.
So the reason why I'm asking is because one of our recommendations over time has been that the county should be doing an overall review according to the NIST framework of all of our systems and at an enterprise level, which has not been done. And right now they've focused on when we've had projects where data is being collected through the project that you would definitely not want to be accessible to anyone. The protection has focused on not combining data, not adding it into aggregated data, and how you protect incoming data from being taken, but not anything about if the assumption that if it's encrypted, it's okay to move it on.
Yeah, good point.
So I'm just wondering how we would focus on that aspect of what has been a reliance on encryption. So for example, we have camera data that was a pilot. I think it may even still be going. Camera data where the ability to analyze that camera data is improving all the time. And it's, taking pictures, not exactly pictures, but data that can be translated into pictures, on public streets. And the protections for that, do have to do with it's encrypted and when it gets combined or doesn't get combined with other data. But this would definitely say that even before it gets combined with any data, it's vulnerable because the encryption is not the issue or not sufficient.
Two pieces there, if I may. One is that back to the NIST CSF, it does have guidance on using encryption, yes. The type of encryption then would be up to the consideration of, I would think I'm way out of my bounds here, but up to the consideration of the advisory group. The interesting thing about this particular example is that using quantum safe encryption would preclude from this, was the type of encryption that you would be using. But then from the camera piece, you know, there's various different types of encryption. We focused on one here today, but there's something called polymorphic encryption, which you can actually manipulate data in its encrypted form while not decrypting it. That might be, you know, something to look into for the camera thing, but that might be a little bit too far. But yes, that, you know, start following the CSF, maybe good guidance in terms of categories to start frameworks that think things through.
Yeah, and Jackie, the NIST has released some AI portions of the risk management framework. I think they're still working on things to deal with generative AI, which is, you know, the newest class of AI tooling that we're talking about here tonight, which is much more recent. So I think there's, but it looks more like it's about how to use it safely and responsibly than it is necessarily to defend against it.
Well, that's interesting. So yeah, so if we're using it as a tool, to not have that be vulnerable to other uses.
Yeah, and just, you know, it doesn't operate the same way as other software, so you have to manage it differently, right?
Interesting. Okay. And what about for the personal level? If people are now, you know, people who are trying different things are basically using AI assistant in Zoom and in Google and in, you know, AI, you know, GPT chat 4 or whatever to be doing various things. What's the level of individual risk from using this without understanding these vulnerabilities?
5. That's my personal opinion. I think it's Wild Wild West right now.
What I'm getting at here is we advise the board, but one of the things we also advise the board on is guidance they should be giving the public for public protection. So, you know,
I don't think
this is definitely going to change government guidance to the public about what they need to do to protect themselves.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we have a good answer for that.
Other than, you know, normal skepticism of all things.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually, I think our police department.
Most people are not actually skeptical of all things.
Yeah, that is the world I live in.
Skeptical enough.
Jackie, do we have any more cybersecurity?
No, that was it. I think we have a responsibility as a committee to keep track of this in terms of guidance to the public as well as about the enterprise level. Yeah. Because we do have, it's mostly through the police department, but I think some is on the emergency management site, guidance to the public about how to protect themselves from fraud and other things and how to report suspicious activity. And this will be a whole new area that may start getting reported to our law enforcement for follow-up.
Oh, yeah. Great. Any other questions for our guest speaker tonight before we move on to the next agenda topic?
One last question then. What's one other issue that you consider relevant? Thinking like maybe IoT or something like that. That's under capital.
Yeah. IoT. So the interesting thing with IoT is that we keep connecting. So IoT, Internet of Things, right? Things, opinion, don't need to be connected to the internet and maybe are, right? Like so we keep safes, actual like safe, the thing you want to keep safe. You're going to put it to the connect to the internet. It will have default username, password. It goes, yeah. It's literally the thing you want nobody to have access to. Now, granted, you have to physically be there, but if you can get access to, you know, the network and you know the safe and you got the default creds, you can open it. Like that's my favorite IoT example. It's like, why would you connect that to the internet? I mean, I get it from the user experience side, but without the type of control that you need in place. So yeah, it's the level of skepticism, right? Does it need to be connected? how do I ensure that what I'm connected is, I'm doing so I'm connecting in a safe way that doesn't counter the actual intent that I'm trying to achieve, like the same. That's hilarious. Yeah, yeah, it's my favorite.
Yeah, and the issue with today is more and more becoming, can you buy something that doesn't have that? There are lots of things now where it's pretty hard to find something unless you go 10 years to a product that's 10 years old to find something that isn't connected, even though you don't want it to be.
The FCC is actually working on basically best of, sort of a certification if equipment meets certain standards that, so it's not an actual FCC certification, but it's a certification that it meets.
Yeah, I think you reported on that.
Yeah, it's really a consumer protection issue.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much for joining us. Hopefully, we can have you back next year to hear what the new terrors of the night are.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
See y'all.
All right. Up next, review of the 2023 to 24 capital improvement plan. Unfortunately, the shift in, there's been a shift, slight shift. I don't know if there's been, but the schedule for the capital improvement plan does not align well with our meeting agenda. So the county manager is going to release the next capital improvement plan to the board, literally at the board meeting this coming weekend. And our work session with the board is the day before our next meeting. So we will not have an opportunity. Couldn't have drawn it up better. We'll not have an opportunity to meet again. So I just kind of wanted to point out to everybody where the 23 to 32 capital improvement plan was. Most of the data that we care about is in this handily labeled information technology and equipment. Please look around for other places. It's broken down into several different lines of spending. The equipment, I will note in this, is not information technology equipment, it's general use equipment. So there's both IT equipment and other equipment listed in here. So you'll see some things that are not relevant to our charter. But take a look through it. And then when the new capital improvement plan is released, please take a look through that and send comments to me and Frank so that we can pull together our comments and recommendations to the board for the work plan session. I will send out a reminder email when it comes out and is actually released with a link to the updated docs, as well as a deadline for getting any reviews and comments to us. Jackie, you've got your hand up.
I do. I believe, maybe my memory is wrong, but I believe last year when we were looking at this in the off year, one of the things that was mentioned was that there is an increasing trend to move items from the operating budget that are IT related into the capital budget. So what I'm most interested in is likely areas of proposed change where things are going to be moved, where in fact a decision has already been made to move them out of the operating budget and into the CIP. And I was wondering if that's something that our staff could shed some light on.
Richard?
It's the other direction. Things are moving out of CIP and into the operation.
Oh.
Breaking news. Look for that this Saturday.
But I thought all of the cloud computing and so on had been in operating, and they were, all of the data center stuff was moving into CIP. I'm wrong about that?
There are a few CIP projects to build net new data center facilities inside the county, but they're small. The vast majority of our spend for cloud is OpEx only.
Okay.
A large amount of our kind of classic hardware stuff, once it's virtualized and we don't have a serial number, we can't capitalize it. So it becomes an operational spend through Microsoft or Google or Amazon or whoever. So you'll see more and more things moving out of CIP and into the operating budget. Go ahead.
I was going to say, so I know that you can't in advance of the 28th, there's nothing specific you can tell us, but is there anything you can tell us about that issue of trends? Like, are there things that we will see that are new things in the CIP?
I'm not the best person to ask about the CIP as a whole. I only deal with a very small part of it.
Yeah.
But if you think about some questions, Lauren will be back next month. We could also have Gilbert, our budget analyst, join us next month.
Yeah.
And they see the whole CIP.
But that'll be after our session.
Yeah, Jackie, I think we had wanted to have that conversation, and usually we request to have the budget or the Department of Management and Finance or the DTS budget analyst come and brief us on the whole thing. But with the shift in the release, we can't see it before it's released. So I do think it would be a worthwhile conversation, regardless of whether or not it's in time for our comments, just so that we can ask those questions, get some comments. It may be too late to impact the CIP generally, but that doesn't mean we can't make recommendations for strategic shifts going forward if we see issues that we're concerned with.
And I can talk to these line items if you want.
These are last year. What I was assuming, Richard, is what you're saying is that the cloud migration in the CIP is to move assets from on-premises data centers into the cloud. But once they're in the cloud, the spending goes into the operational.
And you see that there as it's 3 years of spend and then 0.
Yeah, there was a couple years before that.
Yeah. But this is our anticipated point at which everything that can go to the cloud has gone.
Right.
So we aren't spending on migration activities. Yeah, there will always be some systems on premise. The very last line there, network equipment and power, like there will always be network switches here to get us to.
Yeah.
There will always be some amount of storage. The last line, workforce device, we will always have laptops and cell phones. So there's a small amount that carries forward, but the bulk becomes this operating expense through subscriptions.
Right.
Right. And item 5, the data center consolidation refreshment, that
Yes.
looks like a significant, expenditure over a few years and then.
Yes, we have 2 data center locations that are suboptimal. And we have to figure out where they belong in physical perspective, because we still have to host some.
Right.
So there's a big project to kind of rationalize those 2 centers somewhere that makes sense.
So for the cloud providers, we have zeros for FY 26 through 32. I'm interested in, I work in cybersecurity. So are there third party or are there agreements with the cloud providers so that they provide 100% of security? Or like what's the shared model for security?
It all comes down to the SOC 2 that we subscribe to, or for the service that we subscribe to. They publish a SOC 2 report that lists what they do and what they expect us to do. And if we aren't willing to take on what are the customer compensating controls, we're not going to do those activities, we shouldn't sign up for that subscription.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, no provider is going to guarantee your identity and access.
Yeah.
You are required to validate that the person who says they are John is John. Because the provider's like, you don't know John. We're like 6 states away. Who's John? So we're responsible for identity. We're responsible for standards around things like encryption and access. But beyond that, like they're responsible for making sure there's failover, disaster recovery, sufficient encryption on their end. Like, so we look through those SOC reports and we determine like, is this something that's achievable for us or not? And that's how we decide if we're going to sign up for a subscription.
Okay.
And what about loss of use insurance?
That's a whole separate world. Our insurances are somewhat different because we're a government entity, and insurances in Virginia are administered kind of at the Commonwealth level. And actually, for many things, we aren't insured. We participate in a risk-sharing pool where we put in money kind of like a premium, and every other jurisdiction puts in money that's kind of like a premium, and we share the risk. So when there's incidents, we draw out of that, like an insurance payment. But it's not insurance because Virginia is structured it as risk sharing. So if you look, the company for Virginia is called VACORP, VACORP. They have a website that kind of explain how it works for Virginia. Some of these categories of insurance are very, very specific. I don't know like what our loss of use is. I focus on our cybersecurity and crime policies.
I brought that up because one of the things Libby has been wanting to focus on, but I haven't seen any follow-up related, is on better understanding our risk for grid failure. And with all of the talk about what the increased data centers in Virginia are doing with respect to the grid and how power hungry they are, that increases the risk of grid failure. So the issue of that not just shutting down our power, but also data loss is the other, I mean, obviously that's one of the things that whoever's storing your data has as part of what's on their side of the responsibility, is to make sure they have backup so that so there isn't data loss even if there's power loss. But anyway, I raised that because it's related to this whole grid issue.
All right. Any other thoughts on the CIP?
I'm asking. Yeah. So I noticed that the DHS child welfare system said it was like it's been used since 1995, and it was developed in-house, right?
Almost all DHS systems are developed by the company.
Okay.
So it's a Virginia state application that we are required to use.
Okay.
I don't know about that specific one. I just know that they have dozens, no kidding, dozens of state-based applications.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like developed by DHS. I was wondering about just like
human services.
Yeah. So
most of it is interoperability with children.
Yeah.
Yeah, the health system, I think, is also, maybe, I don't think that this is that, but as you recall during the pandemic, that was how those are or are not integrated was a big issue, but I don't think it was a CIP issue.
No, we get no say in those applications.
Okay.
I wouldn't even say generally. We get no say in those applications. We are consumers with no choice.
Right.
1995.
Yes. We occasionally have some very odd requirements for workstations because of antiquated software.
So we have to use like Windows 98, Windows XP.
Not quite.
No.
We did have to keep Windows Internet Explorer 11 around for about 6 to 8 months because the state couldn't get something updated. So it can have an impact on our security posture, but it's a state issue.
And where is the law enforcement data in this? Is that operations or CIP?
Law enforcement is a mixture, slightly more CIP side. They still have a lot more on-premise or in-house storage for evidence and the like, but they are cloud as well. Like the body cameras interface with evidence.com, which is a cloud subscription service. So body cams are moving to operational budget, but then the evidence locker, which is digital, is a big stack of computers over courthouse.
And that's cloud. That's cloud, or that's here?
That's not cloud. That's in our building.
Oh, okay.
All right. That's what we're here for. All righty. So-
May I ask one sort of related question there? Have you been at all part of the police update of their data systems and this new release they're going to be doing? I know it's all internal to police data, but just curious as to whether they,
No,
you
I
know,
don't.
consulted with you guys at all on their new update.
I look at their contracting and I look at the SOC 2 reports for the services they subscribe to, but I don't look at the actual.
They're about to do a new dashboard with what I think is going to be some really great data. It's GIS based, whereas in the past it has not been.
Great. All right. Next item, Arlington 2050. At the chairs meeting, we were encouraged to make sure that everybody take one down, take one and pass it down.
I did one.
It's one of these cards. If you can't see it, you guys know what they are. They want to hear from the commissions on the 2050 initiative. Got the postcards here. I sent out, it's the engagement guide. I think we all kind of have some ideas about what that might look like. Go ahead and submit. Do we want to have a specific conversation amongst ourselves about that right here? Or do we all feel interested in, capable of submitting our own comments? Yeah. Jackie.
Well, yeah, of course, I'm sorry, but this is an opportunity for us to repeat again some of our big goals, like when in our budget letter, some of the other things, to get them again on their radar in the context of the future, of enterprise level coordination and the goals for open government that would help support, and enterprise level safety. Some of these systems, we're not, I don't know, 21st, or whether we're talking, mid-century. We're certainly not where we want to be mid-century in terms of our ability, both operationally and as far as supporting community engagement and public information. We're not where we want to be. So anything that we would be able to come up with this gives us the freedom to be more forward thinking than our budget recommendations. And I think there would be some value if we could, get some of those things, take some of those things out of that annual comment context that we have them in right now and put them in a future context, as like, here's what we think we'd like to see the overall digital context be. We don't have the strategic plan we wanted to have, but this is the place to ask for it.
What's the deadline for this?
Relatively soon, June 11th.
Is there any way we can get some of our
Same date as the other one?
really tuned in members such as Jackie and you to send the rest of us drafts so that we can inform our own?
I think everybody's comments, if people want to share out what their comment is via email, that might be helpful. But I think everyone has their own view on what Arlington looks like from a technology standpoint. Frank had the prescient view to submit on the actual opening night.
Yes, I was there, I had the opportunity.
That technology would play a big role.
Yeah,
No one
I
talked
bet
about
investment
technology at all.
So,
Yeah.
in being strategic about this, we should check the letters we've sent to the county.
Yeah.
Those same talking.
But
That's all I'm saying is extract from our budget stuff, the stuff that we've asked for that's strategic, and put it in there.
yep, but multiple submissions
It's like the All-Star game. now?
oh yeah. This is, you can vote as many times, you can submit as many postcards as you want, folks.
How about AI?
Does anyone want more?
Sure, I'll take another one.
There you go.
You can do it.
I very much encourage folks to submit from the commission's perspective. Note that it comes from a tech commission member. I think they'll be taking commission comments, maybe looking more critically at those comments than maybe the general comments, but we'll see.
You know, love it.
Yeah. All right. You're back, Richard. DTS update, or sorry, legislative update. Frank, sorry, head fake.
Although before we move on, I think we indicated Jared would be collecting notes on our comments, and you asked that we get comments to Jared by June 7th.
Correct.
So Michael,
On the
purpose, if you want to
on the
comments
hand,
to group, so Jared can do it, that would be June 7th.
That's correct. On the hand.
But send them where?
June 7th to,
Yeah, I'll send an email out to everyone. You can just respond to
and he's going to record comments on that.
Right. That's on the handbook.
That's different.
That's right. The
Okay.
2050 initiative is different. Those go straight to the county from you.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
If you want to CC everybody else, let
So
them know.
much homework. Somebody done.
It's the end of the semester, Professor.
No, that's over.
We're not quite, we're not at graduate level yet. We're still in high school. APS doesn't let out.
Fair enough.
15th.
Fair enough. I've lost touch with APS.
All right.
Legislative. Okay, so the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, will vote on June 6th whether to establish the schools and libraries cybersecurity pilot program. $200 million, up to $200 million. In support will be available to eligible schools and libraries to defray the cost of eligible cybersecurity services and equipment. It wasn't clear what the eligibility criteria will be. Maybe we'll find out after the June 6th vote. The FCC is also at that meeting going to consider a notice of proposed rulemaking to increase the security information routed across the internet and to promote national security by requiring broadband providers to report on their progress in addressing vulnerabilities in the border gateway protocol. The Senate Commerce Committee will try again this week to approve legislation reauthorizing the FCC spectrum auctions, which that authority has lapsed, and providing new funding for the Affordable Connectivity Program, ACP. There are concerns over whether such funding will pass in the House of Representatives. The Information Technology and Innovation Foundation, ITIF, published a report grading all states' initial broadband equity access and deployment BEAD program proposals. Virginia was one of only 9 states receiving an A on its BEAD proposal for technical neutrality, streamlined regulatory environment, and digital inclusion strategy.
Can you send us that link? That might be something that we should include in this, what Andrea and I were doing on comprehensive plans and broadband. It's more a national rating. It might give us some other places we should look at.
Yeah, I'll dig the story that I pulled that from, and I can send it. Do you, to just the two of you, or do you want me to send it around?
I don't care who else gets it.
Okay,
It's ITF. I think it was an ITF study.
Right. I don't have the actual, I didn't have the actual, I had a article of reporting on the report. So
There's a link to it. I could send. It's on that article.
Yeah, forget what, I think it was Fierce or something like that.
And there's a link to it in that article. So the actual.
Yeah, there may have been. Okay. All right, if I can pull the actual link, I'll send.
Yeah, or even the referral, because I can use Chat GPT to find it.
Right. Okay.
Jared used Google. It worked well too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both.
DAE. First link.
The House of Representatives, wow, they're being active, passed bipartisan legislation reauthorizing the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, NTIA, for the first time in over 30 years. And the bill seeks to modernize NTIA's functions, including spectrum management, and cybersecurity oversight in the telecom sector. The AI and Government Lab at the Center for Technology and Government at the University of Albany was created to study the study and application of artificial intelligence in the public sector. Let's see, Virginia's budget includes $50 million for the Virginia Telecommunications Initiative, VATI, which appeared aimed at building out broadband infrastructure to serve rural areas. So I'm not sure that has any relevance up for funding up in our neck of the woods. Maybe. Right. I was thinking Potomac Overlook Park, maybe. There's a couple of gaps in there, I think, coverage.
Donaldson Run is Donaldson Run neighborhood is pretty rural.
It is, yeah. We keep planting those trees. T-Mobile announced that it's entered into a joint venture with EQT, a global investment firm, to purchase Lumos, whose fiber network currently crosses Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. T-Mobile will acquire Lumos's existing fiber customers. Lumos currently reaches 320,000 households over 7,500 route miles with fiber optic internet and home Wi-Fi service in the Mid-Atlantic. So we may see an increased presence from T-Mobile up in our neck of the woods. And as I anticipated, on April 25th, the FCC voted 3-2 to restore net neutrality. It's back. Until
At least through
until it's
November.
not.
It's not. All right, up next.
We talked about how ACP affects low income. And also,
All right. Did have some figures on the number of folks who have signed up. I mean, I think it's in the thousands, right? Yeah, I think we had some reports.
The feasibility, broadband feasibility study, I think either phase 1 or phase 2 has some stats on how many households are cost burdened and what their cost burden would be, including those subsidies and without those subsidies. So I don't.
But I think both Comcast and Verizon have offered some alternative proposals to try to meet that need in the interim.
they offer maybe a month or two. And then,
Well, I think they had it like a different plan, but like a 6-month trial on a low cost plan.
companies like Arlington stepping in, maybe some jurisdictions that are better off for stepping in to help fill the gap. It's hard to do.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's been any discussions at this point.
When's that third report come out?
We're still waiting.
We're waiting on it.
Any
Eagerly
word?
anticipating.
Not yet.
All right. Thank you, Frank. Richard, any DTS updates for us tonight?
I had the DTS.
Lovely. And good. I think next is good of the order, Frank. I lost.
I think so. Yeah, I'm sorry. I pulled that.
Yeah, go to the order. Summer schedule. Usually we take one of the summer months of July and August or August off. Previously we took August off and we made July a virtual for those who are on travel, one of our 3 virtual meetings a year. Any other suggestions about changing that pattern this year, or are folks good sticking to it? Okay, so I will make a motion to skip our August meeting and make July a all virtual meeting. Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries, and that is what we shall do. Thank you very much, folks. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much, folks. Have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next meeting, June 20th.
July, virtual, August, solid.
That's correct.
Put that in.
Good.
See Ryan in a few months.
All right.
He's been, his company just opened up a new office in the Netherlands.
Oh, wow.
So he's been doing a lot of traveling lately. It's hard to get time on his schedule. Companies growing so quickly.
Yeah. Thanks for making that connection.
Yeah,